Hello, and welcome to lesson 47 of the Learning Guitar series. In this particular lesson, we're going to discuss the relationship between pentatonic scales and the blues. And when I say the blues, I literally mean the kind of progression we all know. And you might wonder, why am I discussing what probably is the first thing that a lot of guitar players learn, the moment they learn a pentatonic, and probably being influenced by people like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Joe Bonamassa, Eric Clapton, obviously, B.B. King, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Albert King, Freddie King, etc. So the reason why we're doing this at this stage, as opposed to the first thing in this project, is because as of now, you basically should have a good understanding of the fact that most of harmony and theory derives from the understanding of the intervals and the relationship in between the notes we play and the chords we play. So in looking at the blues, we're not just gonna be, playing a pentatonic over it. We're actually analyze what's going on so that we can improve our language and eventually devise our own phrasing as opposed to pedantically copying other people. And in order for you to understand all these intervals, we had to do, all the major modes, major scales, minor scales, and our intervals shape our phrasing and what we do. Before we start with the lesson, I would like to thank the patron who are supporting this project. As always, I thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are not yet supporting this project, you might want to consider doing so. Okay, let's keep going. First of all, let's have a look. There is different ways a blues progression can be devised. This is a very basic form. It's in the key of A, nothing particularly new about it. All this first line could have been just A7. There are different variation of what's a basic blues. And obviously there's also like a variation in terms of the rhythm in which we could play it. This could be shuffled, or it could be a straight blues. And what I mean by that is actually very simple. I'm sure you can pick it up by ears, although at some point we will discuss, different forms of rhythms. But straight blues, straight tempo, ta 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 ta, almost like rock and roll, like, etc. Shuffle, ta 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 ta. In a way, it's almost borderline. We're going into jazz if you think about it. Swing rhythm, ding 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 da 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 da. In this case, we have ta 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 ta. And of course, the fact that you might be playing it shuffle or you might be playing it straight will influence your phrasing, because also obviously like the tempo of your phrasing is going to be different because of these accents. Anyway, this is something for the future. Let me, I kind of looped that progression with a kind of a shuffle feel, and I'm just going to play a couple of choruses, maybe 2 or 3, just using a pentatonic. The blues is in A minor pentatonic, and then we'll discuss what's going on. So basically we're using A minor pentatonic over the entire chord progression. Now, why why does it work, first of all, and actually what's going on? Because in the previous 3 lessons, we looked at how pentatonics can actually alterate chords. We introduced the concept of alterations as the notes that don't belong. And the other reason why I'm putting this lesson at this point is so that you realize how alteration is not something new to you, especially if you've been playing the blues. And it's something you've been doing all along, probably without realizing that you're doing this, if you haven't studied the relationship in between intervals. Let's have a look at this. So I have a root note here. It's fret number 5, so it's A. We know that the chord is A7. I'm gonna put the rest of the chord so you can see it. Okay, this is A7, 3, 5, flat 7 gives us A7. The scale that would go with it, no alterations, like nothing major happening, would be the so-called Mixolydian. And we know that from studying the major modes. And in fact, it will go like this. 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and root note. And this is, a Mixolydian scale. If I add the second octave, let's put the embellishments in so that the second and the 9 are the same, 4th and 11th are the same, 5th, 6th and 13 are the same. Then again, flat 7, root note. Another 9. We're not going to call this 18, and another 3rd. So theoretically, this would be the scale that go with that. Now I'm going to put some white dots, and I'm going to superimpose a pentatonic scale over this, okay? Because that's what we're using, A minor pentatonic over A7. And now you'll see that actually what we're using, 1, flat 3, this is a flat 3. So this is a minor pentatonic, okay? But because I'm using it over a dominant 7 chord, we'll call this a sharp 9. It's an alteration. The 4th, so root, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. So as you can see, when we're using A minor pentatonic over this chord, we're actually alterating. Okay? Here is our pentatonic. We're alterating in terms of a sharp 9, and we're embellishing too, because we're adding like an 11. Okay? And in fact, if I play you, let's see, let's do it this way. I'm going to play you just an A7. I'm going to have it as a drone. And now I'm going to play the pentatonic notes very slowly so you can hear which one sound consonant and which one sound very dissonant. Root note, that's all right. Sharp 9. In a way you can hear how these sounds sound wrong. 4th, 11, that's the embellishment. Flat 7. So this is all good. Root note again. So you can hear that this flat 3, this sharp 9, actually wants to go here. And that's the sound of the blues. That sharp 9 is the blues. And it's an alteration, okay? Now, is this happening all across the progression? Yes. So let's have a look. So let me delete this 1 second. And so this time I'm going to use D as a root note. And the chord we're playing over, obviously, is a D7, no? So I'm going to write like a D7 chord here, okay? And again, if I wanted to play the correct scale, now I would go for D Mixolydian, because that's the scale that goes with this chord. And in fact, this is a 2nd, that's a 3rd, that's a 4th, 5th, 6th, flat 7, root note. And again, let's use the embellishment. So instead of the 2nd, we call it this a 9. Instead of a 4th, we'll call this an 11. 5th, this we'll call it a 13. and another flat 7, and obviously we also have a flat 7 here, a 6th over here, and a 5th over here. And this would be the Mixolydian, okay? Let me superimpose our pentatonic. And I'm still using A minor pentatonic, okay? So this would be the root note for A minor pentatonic, and this would be the flat 3 for A minor pentatonic. This would be the 4th, 5th, 6th. So as you can see, when I'm using A minor pentatonic over D7, I'm actually not altering, I'm embellishing. If anything, I have a second ear, which is a 9, fair enough, and I have an 11 from a D perspective, obviously, and the rest is root note, 5th, and flat 7. So I'm missing the 3rd. Oh, okay. But so you could see this as like some sort of suspended kind of feel. It doesn't really matter, right? So in other words, over D7, nothing major is happening. I mean, like all the notes, they're kind of contained somewhere in the Mixolydian. There is no alterations. So just to recap, for A7, we're already alterating. We're adding a sharp 9. And for D7, not really, we're just embellishing. We have a 9 and we have an 11. And in fact, let me play a D7. And this is A minor pentatonic, obviously. So, nothing major there. Now, let's look what's happening over E7, though, which is the 3rd chord involved in the progression, obviously. So let's delete this. And this time, let's have the root note as an E. So this note is Z. And again, if I wanted to play, let's put the chord down so you can also see the chord, okay? So here is your 5th. If you want to see it this way, obviously, this would be our Mixolydian scale that goes with that. Flat 7, 6th, 5th. That's the 4th, 5th, 6th, root note. And now again, we are in the 2nd octave, so let's embellish them. The 4th is equal to an 11, 5th, 6th is equal to 13, and back to flat 7. So in theory, this would be the correct scale to play over the chord. And at some point, I'll demonstrate it to you so you see what I mean. Now let's superimpose our minor pentatonic. Again, A minor, so in relation to E, I'm playing an 11th. Sharp 5. Oh, hold on. We have our first alteration there. Now we have a flat 7. That's all good. It belongs. We have the root note in there. And we have 2 alterations, because now we have also the sharp 9, flat 5, and the 4th. Okay, that's the octave. So as you can see, when you're playing your A minor pentatonic over E7, now you have 2 alterations. So when I was discussing alterations, our previous lesson and the lesson before, sometimes people tend to associate alterations with always jazz or some sort of advanced vocabulary that takes musicality away. Let me put it that way. That's why sometimes people use the word jazz in some sort of dispregiative way, and that's very wrong. We're using alterations already, as I said, the blues is probably and the use of a minor pentatonic is probably the first thing people comes across, because, pentatonic minor is probably the first scale people tends to learn, and there's a lot of it happening in rock music, or to a certain degree, some sort of, let's call it pop music, although it's not. I mean, say some Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. A lot of that is designed over pentatonic scales in terms of soloing, and still, I don't think it qualifies as pop. I mean, it's too good to be. Sometimes pop is used in the dispregiative terms, but it was popular. Anyway, let's not digress too much. So now I have E7. And when I superimpose my A minor pentatonic over it, in terms of melody, I have 2 alterations. Listen to this. This is our sharp 5. You see how alterated it is, and this is our sharp 9. You should recognize that chord. I just put E7 and buff the alterations. Now you can see how alterated it is, and how if isolated and played on its own, it's quite out there. So why does it work on the blues? Well, because E7, so the chord number 5 in this case, is the moment of, let's call it uber tension. That's when the blues is creating the biggest tension and then resolving it into, let's say, chord number 1. The progression is 1, 4, 5, different combination of that, of those 3 chords. And when I say, and of course all the chords are dominant 7 in this case, then when we do minor blues, or the blues is a good starting point, and that's the other reason, the third reason why I'm doing it now, is because we're going to build on that harmonically and sophisticate that progression until it's going to lead us into some sort of jazz, okay? Because actually that's what jazz did. Anyway, digression number 2, sorry. So if you think in terms of the blues in A, where A is 1, D is 4, E is 5. That's why we call it like a 1, 4, 5 type of progression, okay? The chords involved is A7, and then the 4th of A is D. So you have D7, and the 5th of A is E, and hence you have E7. If the blues was, I don't know, in C, then you would have C7 as, you know, the resolution point, and chord number 4 would be F7, because it's the 4th of C, and chord number 5 would be G7, because it's the 5th of C. Now, let's go back to our blues. Again, just the minor pentatonic. Now you can hear when the E7 comes, which I think, I'll show it to you. By the way, I'm putting these PDFs online on the Patreon page for you to, you know, to download and have a look. And probably the blues itself, I'll create a backend track for it. So what you're looking at bar number 9, where the E7 comes, and bar number 12. And of course, like, you know, the rest is going from A7 to D7. Let's have a look. I hope you see what I mean by you're already using alterations to create extra tension resolution, as opposed to just the basic one. In fact, like, I'm gonna just do a round where I'm only using Mixolydian scales, okay? So for A7, I'm just gonna do it over 1 octave, so you know, it doesn't get, I will not be phrasing, let's put it this way. So, this is A Mixolydian. This is D Mixolydian, and this is E Mixolydian. So by using these notes, I'm not alterating anymore, I'm just following the chords. As you can see, we had a completely different kind of feel. It almost didn't sound like the blues, if you ask me. But as we will see in future lessons, then, probably the next one, we add some of those notes. If you listen to Clapton, Bonamassa, etc., those tensions can be resolved. So say, I'm going to give you a very simple example. Over A7, I can move that flat 3, remember that alteration? This one. That one. And that's very close to a third. Now, that's typical of, again, blues phrasing to move in and out of those alterations, like in this case. And that's just a major third, okay? Sticking with the alterations, we're just like a little bit. But anyway, we'll discuss this. Digression number 4, Make these videos an hour and a half, and then people cannot follow them. But I'm having a discussion, say, I think of it as I go along. Now, we know that A minor pentatonic works on this progression. Fair enough. Would A major work on this progression? That's the other question. But A major pentatonic, okay? And A major pentatonic, we know the relative minor would be F sharp minor pentatonic. So now instead of using this scale, we are looking into using this scale, okay? F sharp minor pentatonic. Again, the best thing we can do is to actually have a look at the intervals and see if it gives us anything that we can actually use. So let's delete this. And again, our root note, we'll put it in A. This time, by now you should understand we're discussing this chord. I just want to save you some time. I'm not going to put the chord all the time for, A7 and then D7 and then E7, etc. Let's just look at the intervals against this root note. We know it's over A7. So this is F sharp minor pentatonic. And from an A perspective, it's giving us a 13 or a 6th. So all good so far. Is part of Mixolydian. Now we have a 9. Again, all good, still part of Mixolydian. We have a 3rd, all good, is literally part of Mixolydian and the chord. Then I have a 5th, suddenly I have an A triad, okay? So this definitely works on the A7 chord. And if anything, it gets us in and out of that alterated kind of state. So let me play it to you so you hear it. This is A minor, and here is my alteration, my sharp 9. And here is F sharp minor. I'll put it in the same area so you see the differences, okay? This note was not there, but now it's part of A sharp minor, F sharp minor pentatonic. Also, this one wasn't there. This one wasn't there, and this is the 3rd. As you can hear, it sounds pretty consonant. If I do it in this shape, and it totally works. Minor pentatonic, and then F sharp minor pentatonic, which is equal to A major pentatonic. Now, let's see what happens if I use, again, F sharp minor pentatonic equal to A major pentatonic over D. So when the D7 comes. So all I have to do is to move the root note in this case. So let me delete these guys. We don't need these guys anymore. We definitely don't need this guy anymore. Let's move the root note. Let's put it in D. Let's make that the root note now. And as you can see, when I use F sharp minor pentatonic, let me make it wide so you see it. From the D perspective, I have the third of D, that's all good. I have the fifth of D, so the D chord is kind of in there. I have a 13 and a 9, so embellishments, they're still part of Mixolydian. I have a major 7, so now that's an alteration, because we are playing, don't forget the chord we are playing is D7. Oh, that's sharp 6, wow. It's D7, so this is an alteration. No? Now, can I use it? Of course I can use it. Of course it's an alteration. Why not? Let's see what it sounds like. So I have D7. So it's just that major 7 as opposed to flat 7 that creates a little bit of, I would not even say tension. To me, it's a color, but technically it's an alteration. It doesn't belong to a D Mixolydian, so it's an alteration. Let's see what happens when we apply the same thing, this time to E7. So let's take these guys off, and let's take the root note off, and we're going to place it in E. So we're going to make this the root note. Let's look at the interval from an E perspective. I have a 9th. So again, E Mixolydian, don't forget that. Huh? I have an 11 and I have a 13. Basically, I have the upper structure. I have a root note and a 5th. There is no alterations whatsoever. Okay? So can I use it over E7? Yeah, of course I can. So here is E7. And now let's apply, so F sharp minor pentatonic equal to A major pentatonic. I tend to prefer to see it major to minor, so A minor pentatonic, A major pentatonic. But actually visually on the guitar, it's actually kind of simple to switch in between the two. There's kind of a visual trick. Say if I'm in A minor pentatonic is here, so like let's think of barré on the fifth fret, because all the notes of the pentatonic are here. I'm using like your standards. The relative major is a tone and a half down from it, so the same shape would be here. Minor pentatonic, major pentatonic. You can take any shape and do that. So like now let's say I use this shape. This is A minor pentatonic. Same shape, a tone and a half down. So if you're not too familiar with all 5 shapes, and maybe you just know this one, you can just move it a tone and a half down and you have the relative major, okay? Just a little trick. But in reality, the way you want to practice this is to move from minor, say from A minor pentatonic to F sharp minor pentatonic, but within the same area, so that you see the notes changing on the neck. So in this case, right? And if you go okay, so you want to take in this case, since the blues is in A minor pentatonic and F sharp minor pentatonic, and change the notes. Do it first as an exercise, and then you can do it as playing. Let's play, I'm gonna just play, again, a couple of choruses just using F sharp minor pentatonic. Actually, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna play one chorus using F sharp minor pentatonic, and one chorus using A minor pentatonic, so you can hear the difference. I hope you picked up the differences in terms of sound. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to combine them, okay? So I'm going to go in and out of one and the other. Might be less obvious in terms of moving because I tend to use them in the same cages in a way, if you want to put it that way. I hope it makes sense. And I must admit, it's actually hard for me to try and stick to just what I'm discussing with you. So I'm just going to use A minor pentatonic, or I'm just going to use F sharp minor pentatonic, because my ear wants to go somewhere else. I'm used to other kind of alterations. So it's some kind of good exercise for me in terms of restriction, discipline. Sometimes it's not easy. One last thing, not a stupid thing. We're going to discuss the blues scale. I'm sure you heard of it. And again, like I have a PDF, which you will find on Patreon. 5 shapes. This is written in the usual key of G. Okay. What's the blues scale? Well, the blues scale is our pentatonic scale with the addition of a flat 5. Okay. In fact, it's 1, flat 3, 4, and that's pentatonic, 5 and flat 7, and the flat 5. In the PDF, I added the flat 5 as a black dot for the most common way of fingering this particular scale. I also added alternative fingering, so when you see a flat 5 with a white dot, it means you can use, for example, this position, or you can use this note here, and you'll see it happen several times. It's pretty much in terms of what you find comfortable. So, say, adapted to our A minor blues. Here is my pentatonic. And here is with the addition of a flat 5. And there is a flat 5 here. And in the PDF, I also highlighted the fact that the same note, it's over here in case you know. In case you prefer to finger it that way. Now, we say it with the addition of a flat 5, and of course it's the minor pentatonic, A minor pentatonic, and when we are in the A7 chord, of course that's a flat 5, that's the interval. But again, because we want to understand what's going on, is it the case that that's the interval, it's still a flat 5 interval when you're playing D7 in the blues in A? No, of course it's not. So if I'm playing D, let's put it here, let's make this the root note, okay? And our A minor pentatonic, it's here, okay? That's our A minor pentatonic, and I'm playing D, and this is the flat 5. Actually, from a D perspective, that's a flat 9, okay? And when you're playing E, let's make this a root note here. As you can see, it's a major 7, okay? So you have flat 7, 7, like a nice little chromatic motion. So in terms of making it simple to explain, like what a blues scale is, the easiest way to describe it is like it's a pentatonic scale with the addition of a flat 5. In terms of interval within the blues, obviously the name of that interval changes. So if I'm in A7, it's a flat 5. If I'm in D7, it's actually a flat 9, okay? And if I'm in E7, it's actually a major 7. But again, it sounds fantastic. So I hope it makes sense. It's a lot to digest. So now you see why I'm tackling this at lesson 47 as opposed to here is the blues lesson 1. Well, not really. I think the blues is a serious thing, and there is a lot more that we can do with that. And as you will see, we will slowly harmonically sophisticate that progression, and that will allow us to practice, say, diminished, for example. Again, digression number 6 by now. Okay, but that's something to look at. We can all look ahead. As usual on Patreon, be on the lookout. I'm going to put, of course, the PDFs you saw, and for the advanced supporters, I'm going to record a nice backing track that you can practice this stuff too. In terms of exercising, again, make sure that you know 5 shapes of pentatonic first, and practice the passage from minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, or relative minor pentatonic. So in the case of A, you're going from A minor pentatonic to F sharp minor pentatonic. The relative minor is always a tone and a half down. So if you're thinking C minor pentatonic, and now you want to know which one is C major pentatonic is a tone and a half down. So it's going to be A minor pentatonic, okay? Which is equal to C major. I know I repeat myself, and hopefully I'm not confusing it, but hopefully if I say it many times, it will stick. Of course, given that we've done like 6 lessons on pentatonics and we looked at alterated, over a dominant 7 chord that I can actually use more than 2 pentatonics like I'm doing now. We could use 7 different pentatonics, but let's digest one little thing at a time. So in this case, have a look at what you can do on the blues. It's a good excuse also to practice bends, but that's another chapter and that's another digression. And the blues scale. That's a nice addition to your vocabulary. Thank you to the patrons, again, they're supporting this project. I'm waiting probably minute 45 to tell you, subscribe to the channel and all that kind of stuff that people do on YouTube. But as you know, for those of you that know me by now, I don't really care about all that, actually. I find it very annoying, if anything. But if something isn't clear, feel free to comment. I'll try and reply to that. And of course, on Patreon, send me a message if something isn't clear, and I'll take the time to reply. That's it for now. And until next time, bye.